In the game of life, details matter. In fact, I'd go so far as to say that fundamentals executed with excellence wins championships. Your ability to do the basics, but at an exceptionally high level, is what will get you ahead in life. Now, to do things at an exceptionally high level requires you to have a maniacal focus on the things that you can control, the details, the specifics of your surroundings. And this comes top of mind because Anuj and I, we were just talking about this. It just came up in this conversation right now. And I'm going to walk you through a couple of quotes that have been very impactful in my life that I think about constantly. And it's a trend that I've noticed in the most successful people in my own life, that they are maniacal about controlling the details of every little thing. So for instance, we're sitting here and we're setting the scene for this podcast. Anuj comes in, he sets up the microphone stand, the cameras, he gets the framing and all that stuff. And we have this process, these things that we think about, right? I want to have good framing for the shot. I want to have good lighting, right? All these things. But there's one thing that a lot of people miss, which is before you go live, you should always look through the viewfinder and figure out what doesn't belong in the shot. This is clutter, the visual clutter. And you should ask yourself, okay, is there a wire hanging out in the shot? Is there a bottle? Is there something in the background, right? All these things that might distract and not there with intention. And there was one thing in particular that I noticed that bothered me. So when I came in, this microphone stand was on my left side. And when the microphone is on the left side, there's a very subtle difference about the visuals as opposed to when it's on the right side. And you can't probably notice it right now, but that little subtle difference is this wire that's hanging out beneath the microphone. Now, if you're listening to this on a podcast, you're just going to trust me. There's a tiny little wire. It's very small, not very noticeable. But if the microphone was on the other side, then you can see it's now on the top. Now, when the wire is on the top, and you're looking at me, right? You're locking eyes with me. We're trying to make a connection here. And you see that wire, now you're suddenly distracted. You're like, why is that wire there, right? And so everything that we can control to make this as good of a shot as possible, we need to control for. So we just put the mic on the other side, get the wire out of the way. Very simple thing. Now, I laugh about this with Anuj because I'm like, dude, you're going to think I'm crazy. The fact that bothers me is going to seem maybe insane to you, but someday you're going to go, work alongside somebody else and you're going to have that same level of detail and you're going to catch these things that they don't see because you have this higher standard for what excellence looks like. Now, this makes me think of John Wooden. I think his name's John Wooden, last name Wooden. Don't know about his first name, but he's a legendary basketball coach. Has a great book called Wooden on Leadership, and he is a fantastic coach. But in there, he would detail how he would take these basketball players who would come into college, and the first thing that they would learn to do, these great, basketball players who had been at the top of their craft in high school were now coming to college, and the first thing he would do was teach them how to put on their socks and to tie their shoes. I kid you not. Like how to tie their shoes. You would assume that an 18-year-old, 19-year-old guy who's been playing basketball knows how to tie his shoes. But here's the thing. It's one of those details that seems small and inconsequential. But if you do it wrong, it might lead to getting blisters, which then you can't practice as hard or for as long, or it's as uncomfortable, right? And so by putting this maniacal focus on the tiniest, most minute of details that most people would never think to consider, he's showing them, not just saying, just telling them, he's showing them this is what it looks like to execute the fundamentals with excellence to win championships. Who do you think is going to win? The person who brings that same level of intentionality to tying their shoes as they do to shooting free throws, to how they show up at the end of the game, that person is going to win more times than the person who's lackadaisical with the basics. Another person that said something very similar, I was reading the biography of Lyndon B. Johnson, and he's an interesting character, kind of a sociopath, to be honest. But he had a line in there, and one thing that you can't fault Lyndon B. Johnson for is that he was an insanely hard worker. And one of the things that I do admire about him was the fact that he said this. He said, if you do absolutely everything you can, then you can win. He didn't say you will win. He said, then you can win. If you do absolutely everything that you can do, if you control every single variable that you can control, and there's a lot of variables in life that you can't control, but if you just focus maniacally on the things that you can control, then maybe, just maybe, you can do something great. Maybe, just maybe, you can win. But it requires controlling the controllables and having this level of expectation for greatness and excellence of how you're going to execute the fundamentals in your own life. One last person. And I bring this up because I'm about to shoot a video about this book. It's called The Mind of Napoleon. And it's a collection of his writings and his works. And Napoleon, one of the reasons that he was so successful as a politician, as a general in war, was because he had this insane preparation and ability to calculate the details down to he would go all the way down to calculating supply trains and what would you call the food and grains and the there's a word. Surplus supplies. I will say supply chains. He would calculate the food and the resources that are going to his men all the way down to like the bushel of rice. He would calculate it all the way down, and then by the time he had finished calculating, he would say, okay, now it's time to go to war, because I know I have controlled absolutely every variable that I can control. Now I just need to be ready to adapt to what the world gives me. So those are 3 lessons from Wooden, from Johnson, from Napoleon, and from the insane mind of Anthony, who gets bothered by wires in the frame. So hopefully this brings you a little bit of value. If not, this was just the ramblings of a madman. Forgive me. I'll see you in the next episode. Rations. Rations is the word I was looking for there at the end. I got there. Thank you.